The first day in the office for South Africa's new ministers with enthusiasm and big promises. It's predicted the Tory party in Britain could suffer a total annihilation at the polls today. Hello, I'm Jane Dutton.
This is Eyewitness News.
We start with this. The National Prosecuting Authority has dropped all charges against popular TV presenter and rapper Molemo Jub Jub Marokganye. Marokganye was accused of rape, attempted murder, and assault allegedly committed between 2006 and 2009. The charges were brought by 4 women in 2002, one of whom is his ex-girlfriend. According to the NPA, the charges were dropped because there are no reasonable prospects of a successful prosecution.
The decision follows the careful consideration of the information that was made available to the prosecution through representations that were submitted by the defense, as well as the prosecutor's report and the perusal of the evidence in the case docket.
Just one day after announcing his multi-party cabinet, made up of the ANC, IFP, PA and Rise Mzansi, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says the door remains open for the DA to join and be included in his executive. The DA walked away after failing to reach an agreement of the composition of the cabinet.
We'll continue to persuade each other. I don't think that we should rush it. There might be emotions running high, but we have a responsibility to run a government that is as inclusive as possible. That's what voters want. That's what voters told us. And we need to do that. But obviously, we need to respect each other's views on areas where they believe that we are not transparent.
It's off to work today for the rest of our leaders. There's an awful lot of them, 75 ministers, so here's hoping they get the job done quickly. Opposition parties, including the MK, EFF, Action SA and ACDP, are pushing for Parliament to establish a committee on the presidency. The parties say the presidency must account directly to Parliament, especially given the growing number of portfolios housed there. It's a hangover from the previous administration that was deferred to this one after an overseas study tour last year on international best practice.
We want a vote one committee where vote one is going to be scrutinized and all the other entities.
It's to oversee a presidency that can grow like Topsy, and we've seen it grow like Topsy. So that is the experience, reinforced by 30 years of experience, and we still don't have a committee to oversee the presidency.
Rather oxymoronic move by the MK party. The party says it's withdrawing its electoral court challenge of the election results temporarily as it gathers more evidence of vote rigging, and that it has been advised that there are procedural and technical issues to be considered before the matter is brought before the courts. The party had filed papers last month amid allegations of irregularities. The Umkhonto weSizwe party believes it won the general elections but was robbed by irregularities. Staying with the MK, the Electoral Court has slapped 2 senior party members each with a suspended 150,000 rand fine for incendiary remarks over the elections. Recently sworn-in Member of Parliament, Visvin Reddy, and former leader of the MK Youth League, Bonginkosi Kanyile, were both sanctioned by the court. In March this year, Kanyile spoke during a MK Youth media briefing, saying if Jacob Zuma was removed from the party's list as a candidate, there won't be any elections.
If they are removing a logo of President Zuma, these elections were not going to sit. We're going to use everything in our power to ensure that these elections don't sit. And we're going to ensure that they don't sit. We are repeating it here. The Constitution allows us.
In the same month, Reddy spoke at an event saying there will be riots during the elections if the party lost its trademark case against the ANC.
Hear me very carefully. Yes. This country will be turned into civil war. Today, the MK is not allowed to campaign and to be on the ballot paper. No one will vote. No one in this country.
The fines are suspended for 5 years.
I just want to put this behind me and get on with work. But the thing is, none of whatever was said happened. We didn't have the violence. We didn't have all these things, which was a good thing. And it's something that I wanted. I wanted a peaceful election.
The man arrested in connection with the kidnapping of a Portuguese butchery owner is seeking medical attention. Zimbabwean national Bongani Dube limped into the Roodepoort Magistrates Court today, where he appeared on charges of kidnapping and extortion.
Well, the case against a 39-year-old Zimbabwean national accused of kidnapping a Portuguese butchery owner and keeping him hostage at a home in Snake Park, Soweto, has been postponed to the 11th of July. Bongani Dube appeared in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court this morning, facing charges of extortion, kidnapping and robbery with aggravating circumstances. He limped into court this morning, accusing police officers of assaulting him during his arrest on Monday evening. Here's what he had to say in court this morning.
Yes, I see you pointing at the hip, not the leg. So where are you injured? Left hip. What is that stain on your pants? From where? And your shirt.
Police are hot on the heels of more suspects who may be linked to a syndicate that have been targeting Portuguese butchery owners in Gauteng. For Eyewitness News, I'm Arun Singh in Roodepoort.
Proteas limited overs coach Rob Walter and some members of the team that played at the T20 World Cup are back in the country following that narrow loss to India in the final on Saturday.
I'm very optimistic about what the future has in store. It does pain to come so close. It does take a lot out of you, considering for 8 weeks you gave it out, everything out there. I think it showed in performance, but I think there's a restored and a renewed sort of belief from what we had before. I think from the positives we take out to obviously create history to make a final is a step in the right direction. And there was obviously a comment made in the media that, hopefully semi-final, final, and what goes on. But I think the hurt will fuel people in the right direction, and I think it has. There were a few emotions shared verbally from the guys, and naturally so you're going to feel disappointed. But like I said, I think there's a lot of optimism within the squad, a lot of hope and belief that we are going to turn that rope. And if we keep going, putting our heads down and start the process again towards the next event, which is in March, if I'm not mistaken, the sky's the limit for the team. So amongst that, there's a lot of hope and belief.
Britain's Labour Party looks set for a landslide victory when voters go to the polls today. That'll end nearly a decade and a half of Conservative rule. The country's national ballot follows Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's surprise call to hold it 6 months earlier than he required. His gamble looks set to backfire spectacularly, with polls pointing to a heavy defeat for his right-wing party. That would almost certainly put Labour leader Keir Starmer, 61, in Downing Street as leader of the largest party in Parliament. Centre-left Labour is projected to win its first general election since 2005 by historic proportions. We should get results by dawn tomorrow.
I think it's important to have your say. Obviously, the government's in power. They have a lot of policies and things that can affect your life. So having your say in which ones you agree with and which ones you don't agree with, or having your input into who makes those decisions, I think is really important.
I think the voter turnout for young people compared to older people is really low. And obviously it's going to affect us in the long term. A lot of the decisions that are made now have long-term repercussions for us. So I think it's just important to make sure that we put our opinion in.
Yeah. I mean, it's always if there's always a possibility for change, there's a chance for hope.
And that's it from me, Jane Dutton, and the rest of the team. See you again tomorrow.
Eyewitness News, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, log on to ewn.co.za or ewn.mobi.